God says, heaven is watching your next move, not with judgment, not with anger, but with deep love, purpose, and anticipation. You may feel unnoticed right now, overlooked by people, forgotten by circumstances, or stuck in a place where nothing seems to change. But hear this clearly today: heaven has not looked away from you for even a moment. Every prayer you whispered when you were tired, every tear you cried when no one was there, every time you chose faith over fear was seen, recorded, and honored. Jesus knows the weight you carry. He knows the questions you haven't spoken out loud, the decisions you're afraid to make, and the steps you keep delaying because you don't want to get it wrong. But God says your hesitation has a reason, and so does your courage. Heaven is watching not just what you do publicly, but the private moments where your heart wrestles between trust and doubt. God says heaven is attentive to your choices, your faith, and your obedience in this season of your life, even when it feels like nothing around you is changing. You may look at your circumstances and wonder if your efforts matter, if your quiet faith makes any difference, or if your prayers are simply disappearing into the air. But heaven is not distracted, delayed, or distant. Heaven is watching the condition of your heart, the intentions behind your actions, and the trust you place in God when outcomes are uncertain. What others overlook, heaven records. What the world calls small, heaven calls significant. Every step you take in faith, no matter how fragile it feels, is seen with divine clarity. There are moments when obedience feels heavy, especially when it asks you to keep believing without visible proof. Yet God sees how you continue to choose righteousness when compromise would be easier. Heaven notices when you speak with kindness instead of reacting in anger, when you wait instead of forcing doors open, and when you surrender control instead of demanding answers. These choices are not random, they are spiritual seeds. They may not sprout immediately, but heaven understands their timing and value. Your faithfulness today is shaping blessings you will walk into tomorrow. You may think that heaven only watches big moments, dramatic decisions, or public victories, but God says heaven is focused on your daily posture. The way you wake up and choose gratitude instead of despair, the way you pray even when your words feel weak, the way you keep showing up when you feel exhausted inside. These are sacred moments. They reveal trust, endurance, and surrender, qualities that heaven deeply honors. Even when your faith feels imperfect, heaven sees the effort behind it. God knows there are days you feel torn between obedience and fear. Heaven sees how you hesitate, not because you doubt God's power, but because you care deeply about doing what is right. That hesitation is not wasted. It shows a heart that desires alignment with God's will. Jesus understands the weight of decision-making and the pressure of choosing faith when the outcome is unclear. Heaven watches not to criticize, but to guide, strengthen, and protect you as you learn to trust more deeply. Sometimes it feels like others move ahead while you remain in the same place. But heaven measures progress differently. Growth in patience, humility, and trust carries eternal value. God is not rushing you, He is refining you. When heaven watches your obedience, it is not looking for speed or perfection, but sincerity. The smallest step taken in faith can outweigh years of movement done without trust. There are prayers you have prayed quietly, ones you stopped repeating because you feared disappointment. Heaven has not forgotten them. God remembers every request placed before Him with a sincere heart. Even when answers seem delayed, obedience keeps your heart open and aligned. Heaven watches to see if you will continue to trust when things feel silent. That trust builds spiritual strength you may not yet recognize, but heaven does. Jesus reminds you that obedience is not about earning love. It is a response to love already given. Heaven is watching because God delights in seeing you grow, mature, and step into your purpose. You are not performing, you are becoming. Every faithful choice shapes your character, deepens your relationship with God, and prepares you for what is ahead. Heaven watches with intention, care, and expectation, knowing that your faithfulness in this season is preparing you for greater responsibility, deeper peace, and lasting impact. God sees your silent struggles, the ones you never explain to anyone because words fail to capture the weight you carry. Heaven watches the moments when you smile on the outside while fighting battles within, when you hold yourself together in public, but feel overwhelmed in private. Jesus knows the prayers you whisper late at night, the thoughts that keep returning, and the fears you try to silence with faith. Nothing about your pain is hidden from heaven. Even when you feel unseen by people, you are fully seen by God. There are sacrifices you have made that others never noticed. Decisions you took that cost you comfort, approval, or opportunities, yet you chose them because you believed they were right. Heaven records these moments. God sees when you choose honesty instead of benefit, patience instead of reaction, and forgiveness instead of resentment. You may wonder if those sacrifices were worth it, especially when life still feels hard. But heaven does not forget sacrifice. What feels like loss now is often the soil where future blessings take root. Your private prayers carry more weight than you realize. When your voice trembles and your faith feels fragile, Jesus listens with compassion. Heaven is moved not by perfect words, but by sincere hearts. God understands the exhaustion you feel when answers take too long and the disappointment you face when expectations fall apart. Still, every prayer you speak strengthens a connection that cannot be broken. Even when heaven seems quiet, God is active, arranging what you cannot see and protecting you from what you do not know. Heaven watches how you endure. Endurance reveals faith at its deepest level. When miracles do not come instantly and relief is delayed, you continue trusting, continue hoping, and continue showing up. God sees that perseverance. Those long seasons of waiting are not meaningless. They develop strength within you that comfort never could. Jesus reminds you that endurance produces maturity, and maturity prepares you for responsibility and peace that cannot be shaken. There are moments when doubt tries to convince you that your efforts are wasted and your pain unnoticed. But heaven's attention has never left you. God is close to the brokenhearted and attentive to those who lean on Him in weakness. Your tears are not signs of failure. They are signs of sincerity. Heaven understands the language of tears even when no words are spoken. Sometimes you feel pressured to appear strong, to hide your struggles behind faith-filled phrases and quiet endurance. Yet Jesus invites you to bring your honesty to God. Heaven is not offended by your questions or emotions. God welcomes your truth, knowing that real healing begins with sincerity. The struggles you face are shaping your character, deepening your empathy, and strengthening your dependence on God. Heaven also watches how you respond to pain. When bitterness tries to settle in your heart, and yet you choose grace, heaven responds. When anger rises and you choose peace, heaven responds. These choices may feel small, but they carry spiritual weight. They shape who you are becoming and prepare you for what lies ahead. God assures you that your struggles are temporary, but what they produce in you is lasting. Heaven is not rushing your process, it is walking with you through it. Jesus remains close in every moment of weakness, offering comfort, strength, and direction. Your silent struggles are not signs of being forgotten. They are moments where faith is refined, trust is deepened, and your relationship with God grows stronger than ever. Expend 3 keynotes, 600 words without subheading and conclusion. Every decision you make carries spiritual weight and eternal impact, even the ones that seem small or insignificant in the moment. God sees the choices you face daily, the moments when you pause to think, pray, and consider what honors Him most. Heaven is watching the direction of your heart, not just the outcome of your actions. When you choose truth over convenience, faith over fear, and obedience over comfort, those decisions echo beyond what you can see. Nothing done in alignment with God's will is ever wasted. There are times when decision-making feels overwhelming because you fear choosing wrongly. You worry about missing God's plan, stepping outside His will, or making a mistake that cannot be undone. But Jesus understands this fear and reminds you that God's guidance is not fragile. Heaven does not withdraw its support when you stumble. God values a willing heart more than flawless execution. The fact that you seek His direction already places you within His care and protection. Even delays in decision-making are seen by heaven. When you wait, reflect, and pray instead of rushing forward, heaven recognizes your desire for alignment. Waiting does not mean inactivity. It is often an act of trust. God uses these seasons to shape discernment, patience, and wisdom. What feels like hesitation can actually be preparation, as heaven aligns circumstances and softens hearts, including your own. Some choices demand courage, because obedience often leads you against the expectations of others. Heaven sees the tension you feel when following God's voice costs you approval or understanding. Jesus reminds you that obedience sometimes requires standing alone, trusting that God's validation outweighs human affirmation. These moments define spiritual maturity. They reveal where your trust truly lies. Your decisions also influence others in ways you may never realize. When you choose integrity, forgiveness, and humility, Heaven uses those choices to inspire, convict, and encourage people around you. Even when no one speaks about it, your faith creates an atmosphere where God's presence is felt. Heaven works through your example, quietly and powerfully shaping lives beyond your awareness. God knows that fear often tries to shape your choices. Fear of failure, fear of disappointment, fear of being misunderstood. But heaven invites you to move from fear to faith. Jesus assures you that fear cannot coexist with trust. When you hand over your worries and choose obedience, heaven responds with peace that steadies your heart, even when circumstances remain uncertain. There are moments when you wish God would show the entire path before asking you to move. Yet heaven often reveals only one step at a time. This is intentional. Step-by-step obedience keeps you dependent on God, deepens your faith, and prevents pride from growing. Heaven watches not for speed, but for consistency and surrender. God's grace covers your decisions, even imperfect ones. Heaven does not turn away when you stumble. It draws closer, offering correction, comfort, and direction. Jesus walks alongside you, guiding you back when needed and strengthening you to continue forward. Every choice you place in God's hands becomes a tool for growth and refinement. Heaven knows that your decisions are shaping who you are becoming. Each choice builds character, deepens trust, and prepares you for greater responsibility. What you decide today forms the foundation for tomorrow. Heaven is watching your next move not to intimidate you, but to support, guide, and bless you as you continue walking in faith. Delay does not mean denial. Divine timing is always at work behind the scenes, even when it feels like nothing is happening in your life. Are moments when you pray, hope, and take steps forward, yet the results seem slow or even absent. In these seasons, it is easy to feel discouraged or to question whether God has forgotten you, but heaven is orchestrating things far beyond your understanding. What seems like waiting is actually preparation. Every delay, every pause, and every season of quiet is a deliberate act of God's timing, shaping your life in ways you cannot yet see. Heaven watches closely because every moment of waiting is intentional and meaningful. God sees the small things you do that go unnoticed by others, the prayers offered in secret, the tears shed in solitude, the choices to stay faithful when no one is watching. These are not wasted moments. They are spiritual investments that heaven values deeply. Divine timing often requires patience because God wants your heart aligned with His will before blessings arrive. You may feel pressure to force outcomes, but Jesus reminds you that forcing things often leads to confusion and missed opportunities. True breakthrough comes in its appointed time, and heaven observes how you respond to the waiting. Sometimes the delay tests your faith. You may feel anxious, frustrated, or doubtful, wondering why the answers you long for are not immediate, but God is not absent during these moments. He is actively working behind the scenes, arranging circumstances, people, and resources to come together in ways you cannot yet comprehend. Every delay is a lesson in trust, a chance to deepen your reliance on Him, and an opportunity to grow spiritually. Heaven takes note of your patience and perseverance, knowing that these qualities strengthen your character and prepare you for the fullness of what is to come. Heaven also watches how you use this waiting period. Do you allow it to cultivate gratitude and humility, or do you allow impatience and frustration to take root? God sees your heart in the way you respond to life's pauses. Even when your plans are postponed, your attitude and faithfulness matter. Choosing to remain steadfast and hopeful during delay demonstrates trust in God's wisdom and sovereignty. Each moment of patience, though unseen by the world, is recognized by heaven and adds to the weight of your spiritual maturity. Delays are also opportunities for alignment. Heaven sometimes withholds immediate answers so that you can grow in understanding, discernment, and readiness. It is in these quiet seasons that God molds your faith, sharpens your focus, and strengthens your perseverance. You may feel stagnant, but your spirit is being refined. What you experience during waiting prepares you to handle blessings responsibly and with gratitude. Heaven values not just the outcome, but the person you become while waiting. Jesus encourages you not to compare your timing with others. What may happen quickly for someone else may require a longer season for you, and that is okay. God's timing is perfect and personalized. He is not late. He is always exactly on time. Heaven watches how you navigate this truth, how you continue to trust despite appearances, and how your faith grows when you choose obedience over frustration. Every act of trust in divine timing is noticed and rewarded. In moments when delay tests your patience, remember that heaven is never passive. God's timing is a form of love, protection, and wisdom. He knows what you need when you need it, and how much you can handle. Waiting is never wasted. Every season of pause carries purpose, and every moment of trust in God's timing shapes the path ahead. Heaven watches because your faithfulness, patience, and trust in these moments are building the foundation for blessings, restoration, and fulfillment that only God can orchestrate. Your next move can unlock blessings, restoration, and purpose prepared for you. God has already set in motion plans for your life that are beyond what you can imagine, and every step you take in faith positions you to receive them. Sometimes it feels as though nothing is happening or that your efforts are unnoticed, but heaven is watching intently. Every choice, action, and step you take toward obedience aligns you with the destiny God has prepared. Your next move is not random. It carries divine potential, and it can open doors that have been waiting for your courage to act. Heaven is aware of the hesitation that often precedes action. You may be afraid to step forward because you fear failure, rejection, or disappointment. God sees your fears and understands your doubts, yet He calls you to move in faith. Jesus reminds you that moving forward, even imperfectly, demonstrates trust. Your next move matters more than the fear that accompanies it. Heaven watches to see if you will trust Him enough to step despite uncertainty. And when you do, blessings begin to flow in ways you cannot yet comprehend. Every step toward God's calling carries restoration. It may not look like what you expected, but heaven is aligning your life to restore what has been lost: peace, joy, relationships, and opportunities. The next move you take in faith can release healing into areas of your life that have been broken or delayed. God is preparing circumstances that will turn setbacks into setups, trials into testimonies, and challenges into triumphs. Your obedience acts as a key that unlocks doors of restoration, and heaven is watching to see how you will respond. Purpose is another powerful outcome of moving in alignment with God's plan. Every intentional choice shapes your journey and draws you closer to fulfilling the destiny He designed. Heaven is interested in the decisions that reflect faith, integrity, and courage, because those are the decisions that refine your character and clarify your calling. Your next move can reveal opportunities, connections, and insights that prepare you for the work God has set before you. Even small acts of obedience can initiate life-changing momentum when guided by divine purpose. God also observes the heart behind your actions. Heaven does not only notice what you do, but why you do it. Actions taken out of love, faith, and surrender carry more weight than actions driven by fear or self-interest. Jesus teaches that a step of faith, no matter how modest, is powerful when motivated by a heart that seeks to honor God. Heaven watches to see if your next move reflects trust in Him, and when it does, it triggers divine favor. The alignment of your heart and actions creates momentum that brings blessings, restoration, and purpose together in perfect timing. Even when the path ahead seems unclear, your next move matters. Heaven recognizes the willingness to obey, even when you cannot see the outcome. Moving in faith shows God that you trust His guidance above your own understanding. Each step forward, no matter how small, opens the way for miracles, opportunities, and transformation. Your next move can be the moment when God shifts circumstances, restores what was lost, and brings clarity to your purpose. Heaven is watching, and it is ready to respond to your faith-filled action. Your life is full of potential, but God asks you to act with courage and trust. Hesitation may feel safe, but action in alignment with God's will release the blessings He has prepared. Every faithful choice you make positions you for restoration, opens the doors of your destiny, and brings clarity to your purpose. Heaven is watching because your next move is not just another step, it is a step toward the life God has ordained for you. Your next move is not just a simple choice. It is a moment filled with spiritual significance, and heaven is fully attentive to it. God watches closely because every decision you make carries weight in the unfolding of your life and the fulfillment of His plans. You may feel uncertain, hesitant, or even fearful about what lies ahead, but Jesus reminds you that you are not stepping into the unknown alone. Heaven observes your heart, your intentions, and your faith as you take each step. What you do next has the power to shape your future, influence others, and unlock blessings that have been waiting for your obedience. Fear often tries to hold you back. You may worry about failure, rejection, or making the wrong choice. Heaven sees these fears, but God calls you to move forward anyway. Faith is not the absence of fear. It is moving in spite of it. Jesus encourages you to trust Him with your next move, knowing that He has already prepared the path before you. Even when you cannot see the entire road, heaven is aware of your willingness to obey, and that willingness carries divine significance. Heaven also watches how you respond to challenges along the way. Life may place obstacles, delays, or discouragements in your path, but your response reveals the condition of your heart. Choosing patience over frustration, trust over doubt, and perseverance over surrender demonstrates a deep faith that heaven honors. Every time you rise above fear, anger, or discouragement, you are aligning with God's plan, and your next move becomes a stepping stone toward greater blessings and spiritual growth. God is attentive not only to your actions but also to your motives. Heaven evaluates whether your decisions come from a heart aligned with His will. Actions motivated by love, integrity, and faith carry more weight than those driven by self-interest, fear, or impatience. When your next move reflects a sincere desire to honor God, it activates favor, opens doors, and invites divine guidance. Heaven is ready to respond to faith-filled action, and your heart's posture plays a crucial role in unlocking what God has prepared for you. Timing is another element that heaven observes closely. God works on His perfect schedule, and your next move must align with His timing. Sometimes you may feel delayed or wonder why progress seems slow, but heaven knows that preparation and patience are part of the process. Every season of waiting strengthens your faith, develops your character, and positions you to receive what is meant for you at the right time. Your next move, taken in faith and trust, becomes a catalyst for God's timing to bring forth blessings, restoration, and fulfillment. Finally, your next move carries eternal significance. The choices you make today ripple beyond the present moment. Heaven watches because your steps can influence not only your life but also the lives of others. Acts of obedience, kindness, faith, and courage can inspire, heal, and impact those around you in ways you may never fully see. Jesus reminds you that even small steps taken in faith are never insignificant. Heaven honors your trust, observes your faithfulness, and positions you for spiritual breakthroughs, purpose fulfillment, and blessings that extend far beyond your current circumstances. Your life is a series of divine opportunities, and heaven is attentively observing your next move. God sees your fears, your intentions, your perseverance, and the sincerity of your heart. Every choice you make, no matter how small, carries potential for transformation, restoration, and alignment with His purpose. Jesus calls you to move forward with courage, trusting that heaven is ready to respond, that divine timing is at work, and that your next step can unlock blessings and fulfill the destiny God has prepared just for you.